Hello everyone and welcome to 5-Minute German. In today's video, we will learn how to make questions with modal verbs. This will be part 2 of the modal verb videos. In part 1, I explained what are modal verbs and how you can make sentences with modal verbs. If you have not seen that video, please check it out. I will link it in the description below. So now let's not waste any time and let's get started. So we will start by taking a look at W-fragen with modal verbs. After that, we will take a look at the Ja, Nein Fragen with modal verbs, and then in the helpful tip sections, I will tell you a tip for remembering the correct sentence structure with modal verbs. And at the end, I will give you a self-check form for practicing what you have learned in this lesson. So are you ready to level up your German? I know you are. So let's start with W-fragen with modal verbs. So in order to understand W-fragen with modal verbs, let's first of all take a look at a W-frage without modal verb. An example will be Was machst du heute? What are you doing today? Now in this W-frage example, we see that at position 1 we have the W word, at position 2 we have the conjugated main verb, and at position 3 we have the subject. And after that we can add extra information if needed, which in this case is only heute. Now let's take the same sentence with a modal verb. So the sentence will become Was willst du heute machen? What do you want to do today? Over here, we see that at position 1, we also have the W word and the subject stays at position 3. After that, we have the extra information. However, a change over here is that at position 2, we don't have the conjugated main verb, rather we have the conjugated modal verb, which is willst. And the main verb goes to the end of the sentence in the infinitive form. Let's do a comparison of the sentence structure of the W-frage without modal verb and the W-frage with modal verb. So we see that the change happens at position 2, where the conjugated main verb goes to the end of the sentence in infinitive form and is replaced by the conjugated modal verb. Now let's take some more examples of W-fragen with modal verbs so that we can understand them better. So an example with the modal verb können can be Wie kann ich Deutsch lernen? How can I learn German? Over here again we have at position 1 the W word, which is wie. At position 2 we have the conjugated modal verb kann. At position 3 we have the subject, which is ich, and the main verb lernen goes to the end in the infinitive form. Another example with the modal verb dürfen will be Wo dürfen wir das Auto parken? Where are we allowed to park the car? Here again the W word comes at the first position, the conjugated modal verb comes at the second position, third position is the subject, and the main verb, which is parken, goes to the end in the infinitive form. Now I want to show you two more examples which are a little different. So you see this example over here, Wie viele Stunden musst du arbeiten? How many hours do you have to work? Over here, the first part, which is Wie viele Stunden, is the W word, and these three words make up the position 1 because we cannot separate it. I have explained this in detail in my video on W-fragen. However, I just wanted to give you a reminder over here so that you don't get confused. And you see at position 2 we have the conjugated modal verb followed by the subject, and the main verb goes at the end in infinitive form. Another example which is similar is Welcher Film soll ich sehen? Here Welcher Film together makes up the W word, and after that we have the conjugated modal verb, which is soll, followed by the subject, and the main verb comes in infinitive form at the end. So this was the concept of W-fragen with modal verbs. Now let's take a look at Ja, Nein Fragen with modal verbs. So a simple Ja, Nein Frage without modal verb will be Kochst du heute Abend? Are you cooking today evening? Over here, at the first position, we have the conjugated main verb. At the second position, we have the subject. And after that, we have any extra information if needed. Now the same question with the modal verb wollen will be Willst du heute Abend kochen? Do you want to cook today evening? Over here, you see that at first position, we have the conjugated modal verb followed by the subject at position 2. Then we have the extra information, and the main verb goes to the end in infinitive form. So let's do a comparison between Ja, Nein Frage without modal verb and with modal verb. So you see the change happens at position 1, where the conjugated main verb is replaced by the conjugated modal verb, and the conjugated main verb goes to the end in infinitive form. Now let's take a look at a few examples of Ja, Nein Fragen with modal verb so that you understand it better. So the first example is Dürfen wir hier rauchen? Are we allowed to smoke here? Here, dürfen is the conjugated modal verb at position 1. Wir is the subject at position 2. Then we have the extra information, and the main verb goes to the end of the sentence in infinitive form. Another example will be muss die Prüfung bestehen? Does he have to pass the exam? Die Prüfung means exam and bestehen means to pass. So this also follows the same structure with the conjugated modal verb muss at the first position followed by the subject and the main verb coming at the end in infinitive form. Now, as we have taken a look at different types of sentences with modal verbs, let me give you a tip so that you remember the correct sentence structure with modal verbs. So if you saw the previous part where I explained modal verbs with basic sentences, then you might remember that I gave you two rules for modal verbs. The first was that the modal verb comes at second position in conjugated form, and the second was that the main verb goes to last position in infinitive form. However, with the examples, we saw that the modal verb can also come in the first position in case of Ja, Nein Fragen. So we can write rule number 1 in a better way, and that is the modal verb comes at the position of the main verb in conjugated form. This can be position 2 or this can be position 1 as we saw in Ja, Nein Fragen. So whenever you want to write a sentence with modal verb, just take a look at the position of the main verb and replace it with the modal verb, and then use rule number 2, which is the main verb goes to the last position in infinitive form. This is a better way to remember, and with this there is a less chance of making a mistake. So with this we come to the end, and I want to congratulate you that since you have now learned modal verbs, you will be able to write better sentences, because if you do not know modal verbs, you can only write basic sentences. However, with modal verbs you can write better and more complex sentences, and when you use them, people will think of you as a German pro. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or any feedback, please let me know in the comments below. You will also find the link to a self-check form in the description where you can go and answer questions to see how well you have learned the concept of making questions with modal verbs. If you want to learn how to make W-fragen or Ja, Nein Fragen in German, then take a look at these two videos that I have on this topic. Thank you very much for your time and see you in the next video.